Anyway, so let's maybe kick things off a little bit. So honestly, I can't remember who initiated the discussion, but there was asking about both our customer portal and our e-commerce solution called Webtelligence. So the customer portal, we've got integration into Sage 300. It's been there forever. That's always been a component of our full Webtelligence solution. And it's really just a means for customers to self-serve. So, and then of course we have our full e-commerce platform called Webtelligence. It's integrated to Sage 300. And they communicate in a couple of different ways. The customer portal does a live read of data into Sage 300, and it does so through a web service we call Connect. Very small little program that just sits on the server of Sage 300 and waits for us from the portal to ask a question of Sage, and then it will interrogate Sage and send back the answer. So the portal itself has no data of its own. It reads and feeds live into Sage 300. Oh, and incidentally, we've released it for Sage Intacct as well. The customer portal. So it's available for both those products. Webtelligence is strictly a Sage 300 for now, and that's probably going to be maybe moved over into Intacct. We'll find out what the appetite for that is. Webtelligence uses another method. It will use Connect as well because the portal is always part of it, but it also has a component called Dataport, and it actually does move data from Sage 300 onto the web. So, full-on web store capabilities. It needs to have the data accessible to it locally so that it can transact business regardless if Sage is running in the background or not. And it also does things like content management, where you can supplement the data that comes out of Sage 300 with more extended descriptions, with images, with videos, with supporting files or documents, things like that. So it does a lot of different things, but one of the more critical ones is to move data back and forth between the two systems on a scheduled basis, and that will be making your products available to the web and also bringing down payments and orders down into Sage 300, either live or as a backup on that scheduled basis. So that's just a little bit of the background about the two products. In North America, the customer portal for Sage 300 is an endorsed product, so it's on the Sage 300 price list. We started chatting with the folks in Africa about doing the same thing, and that may happen at some point. We don't know, but as it stands right now, we still support international markets outside of North America for the customer portal. So you would deal directly with us in that instance. With that, I think perhaps it's best just to show you the product, and maybe Etienne, I think you're probably queued up to do this now, are you?
I am, yeah. If I can perhaps just get some context or background, Michael or somebody, could you let me know why we're having this conversation, other than it's great to catch up, but do you have a particular client or install an environment or a business model in mind?
Yeah, we have a couple, and I think it seems though Ian is the one that gets most of the customers that have these. I suppose here they're early adopters, but guys who are looking for hosting and web stores, and there are a number of products out there, but we found it fairly difficult to get one that really does what the customer wants. So what happened was I went onto your website and I thought, well, let's see if there's something we can show at our next meeting or find out a bit more about, just to know what the products do. And then we can take it from there. But I think in both instances, there were Ian's customers who were asking him for certain things. And we've looked at InSync, I think they're called InSync or App. I can't even remember their name now. Mm-hmm. But they with the WooCommerce and things like that, it just looked a little bit complex for us to interact with them. So we've been looking around for something from the Webtelligence side of things. Okay. And then so on the customer
side, sorry, a couple of them are using initially onto the business to business side. It's something called Stock to Shop, and of course local guys who were busy with the interface, but it seemed like there was quite a lot that they would need to write each time, or we'd sometimes need to give them some SQL views if they were using, for example, kits within Sage 300.
Mm-hmm.
That always seems like quite a long process. I mean, the one place they still were just about to start running on it, but it seemed quite a drawn-out process. And it seemed a lot of going backwards and forwards from our side. They'd want us to add optional fields and different things, to identify the customers and the items that would get sold on the web store.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like eventually it would work, but it doesn't seem like a very easy implementation.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks for that. Let me share my screen. You should be able to see my screen okay now. I think what I'll do is kind of kick off with the portal. As Peter said, the portal is always part of the bigger e-commerce system as well. And starting off in the portal allows us to just focus and speak about functionality first, before we kind of go on into a larger implementation of a full web store. The portal, we have broken away as well. It is being sold as a standalone. It is a multi-tenanted SaaS solution, so we host it, but and it is multi-tenanted, so there's only one code base, and everybody that logs into the same place. We did provide ample means and infrastructure for us to do certain customizations, to integrate to, other systems, to add functionality to that. For example, we have a bunch of pharmacies or who are running a pharmaceutical system called Framework, which issues, prescriptions, etc., dispensing. And they will pass the invoice summary into accounts receivable. So when we show the customer his accounts receivable statement and he clicks on a link, we show him the invoice coming directly out of Framework. So we do have the ability to make it integrate and to add other functionality to it, even though it's a multi-tenanted SaaS solution. When we break it away when it is deployed as part of a full e-commerce system, then of course it's entirely different. It is then a specific a deployment of the portal for that particular customer, and that's largely a B2B environment. B2C, because the customers in the B2C environment typically don't have an AR account. The customer's ability to interrogate their own account is very limited to what's happening to my order kind of inquiry. So let's speak about the portal first. Please feel free to interrupt me at any point as we go along. By and large, when users in North America deploy the portal, they do so to get payment online. I would guess that is almost a universal thing. If you guys deal with Orchid and their products in Australia very often, Orchid has deployed our portal so that when you log in, you can now look at activation codes of your customers through our portal, and you can, do renewals on the portal for your customers and the products that they're using, and you can pay your account directly with them online as well. So all of that goes through our portal. So the portal, even though it is hosted, because we don't have any data on the portal is interacting with Sage 300 real time as the user navigates through it. It really doesn't matter where it's hosted. It works really well regardless of where the 300 data is sitting, and we can demonstrate that quite well through Orchid and a few customers. We host a dealer in Europe, for example, and so on. Let me take you through this. And I think I'll start somewhere a little bit on the outside, and one of the features which, at least in North America, is making the portal very popular is what we call click to pay. And click to pay really is your ability to embed a link in an invoice or in an email that you send out, whether you do so directly from within Sage or externally. You can embed a link, and the customer can click that link And once they've clicked the link, they can then just simply go ahead and pay the invoice. So it really doesn't matter what the means are, whether you're sending out an email or a Word document or a PDF, as long as you can embed that link there, it's going to work. And you'll see from the link, if I hover over it, really what we're passing it is the customer number and the invoice number to the portal, and the portal is then going to do a real-time lookup of that document and allow the customer to pay it. So customer gets this email, says, please pay me. They go ahead and click the link. We will open up the portal in click to pay mode. We will validate the customer and the invoice number. We will look up the amount, we'll look up the customer, etc. And they can now go ahead and pay it. So really all the customer has to do at this point is just click the pay invoice. But before we go there, let me just explain some of the features on this page. And as I'm going to show you a portal with every bell and whistle turned on. The merchant, so the user, the owner of the portal, has the ability to turn functionality on and off as they wish. So if, for example, you'll see on the top here, we have the ability to pay an invoice, an order, a quote, or do an unallocated payment. If these are all prepays in the system, if the user doesn't want to use it, they just simply turn it off and they won't be there. You'll see that there's a surcharge levied here. The surcharge is just the merchant, so this customer deciding that they want to recover some of the fees, and they set this up here. This is a message controlled by them. So they set it up that for any credit card payment, there will be a fee of 2.5%. For any check, EFT, electronic check payment, there will be a fixed charge of $15. So depending on what the user may or may not choose to pay, it's going to adjust that. But again, this is optional. They can turn that off. They can control the payment methods that the client has, and that'll be somewhat dependent on what their gateway will do. We are gateway agnostic. So we will, in North America, we made a promise that we will integrate all the major banks and institutions. When we move away from, North America, we need to look at what those banks offer and how we can integrate with them. But this is going to be dependent, A, on what the bank allows, and B, what the merchant wants to allow their particular customers to do. Anyway, so with all of that, then really what the customer has to do at this point is just go ahead, pay invoice. We'll navigate them away to whatever the payment gateway is. In this case, it's Paya or Sage, used to be Sage Payment Solutions. They fill in their credit card number and make the payment. What did I do? Invalid card number. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do I do it right now? There you go. And then they get an immediate transaction. So the customer has now immediately gotten a transaction. Here it is. They can go ahead and print themselves a copy of that. For the merchant, so for the owner of this portal, that Sage 300 user, there's a whole heap of notifications now going out. So for example, they have now received email notification. I'll just kind of click it and bring it up onto the screen here. So the sample data has now been notified that Ronald Black has made a payment of that amount in the surcharge, etc. So they've been notified about that. And we've integrated the system into both Slack and Microsoft Teams. And so notification can be sent through via those means as well. Let me just call up my Teams here and I'll give you a look at that. So we set up a Microsoft team called Portal Notifications. We created a bunch of channels in that team to receive various kinds of notifications from the portal, and one of them is accounts receivable. And in the accounts receivable portal, you'll see that we've just had a notification that Ronald Black has made a payment on invoice number 61 to that amount. So the notifications going out is instant and immediate. Everybody is aware of it. The customer is going to get a copy of this, etc. We've also written this transaction directly into Sage. So if we open up sample company Inc. here, and I'm running this on Azure. So I've got my Sage open in a browser. We look at the receipt batch. There's a receipt batch that was just created now, coming from what we've called the Azure portal. It's just because we happen to integrate this one to Azure. That's not a requirement, by the way. It'll integrate wherever we want it to integrate to. And you'll see that invoice number 61 has been paid. And in order to accommodate the additional charge that they've levied and make it post into the general ledger accurately, we used an adjustment on that. So if we look at the adjustment, you'll see that there's a $58 adjustment. That was that additional fee that they paid. And on the portal, you set that up and give us a distribution code so we can accurately post this into the general ledger, and everything's going to balance off at the end of the day. So this payment was processed in real time into the system. I'm just going to close all my portals down again and just show you that if the customer goes ahead and clicks this again, because he's made that payment already, we're going to validate that and say, no, this invoice is not available for payment. So we will look not only at the posted transactions in AR, but the pending transactions as well. So what the customer sees is what you see internally. They cannot make a duplicate payment. There's no export of data. There's no import of data. We are literally interacting with the system real time. On the system, that looks like a, let me just close it down. That is a unit, a system which we call Connect. And as long as Connect is running, the customer has access. When Connect stops or fails, the access is lost. So this is what we're using to communicate from the portal directly into Sage 300. We can potentially get at any data inside Sage 300, inside SQL, any ODBC compliant database, which means that we can extract data from, for example, CRM, from an external SQL database, and any data sitting inside Sage 300, we could potentially get access to. Now, the customer do control that, so, just to keep security intact, in the connections that they have. So in the portal here, for example, they can control what login it is. So what's the user ID into Sage? And by simply controlling the security settings of this user, they can control what we have access to and what we don't have access to. Okay. So that's kind of almost the run up here into the portal. Let's log in and have a look at the portal itself. On the portal login page, this will be the customer logo. We left a lot of room here so they can, put graphics in here and some sort of verbiage, do business with us because we're the best in the world or whatever they want to do. So a lot of room here for them to make this look and feel a lot like their system. This is a message which they control, so they can set up this message and change it very easily whenever they want to do that, and I'll show you how to do that. We are multilingual, so at the moment we have English and French, but we're very happy to work with somebody that wants to bring out a different language format here. It's as simple as us sending you a spreadsheet with the English labels or tags on for the portal, and just put the appropriate language equivalent next to that, and we can import it and create a new language file. Registration, either via, everything from just a kind of a contact form that looks like this, which says, please create a user for us, through to self-registration where the customer will fill in the details, answer some sort of security question. We've set this one up as the zip code or the postal code. This will validate against the AR account. So when they fill this in, they need to give us the zip code on the AR account in accounts receivable, and we'll validate it. And then you can set the system to automatically approve this user, and if that happens, they can just go ahead and log in. And so that is the entry screen. Let's go in and have a look. Any questions so far? Are we doing okay? Okay. When the customer logs in, typically these are the views, and I'll show you the equivalent of this inside Webtelligence as well. And I'll move quite quickly through here. So please stop me if at any point you have questions. Account activity is going to be, the user clicks that, and we're going to give them just a summary of their account. What's your balance, your terms code, the addresses, your most recent invoices and payments. View transaction is going to do pretty much that. So here is a view transaction. You can select how many you want to view on a page, show all or open only. Open only are going to be transactions with a balance, so that really would be almost your statement of account at this point in time. The user can limit or drill down to what they want to view. The list of these transaction types is controlled by the merchant. So they, for example, if they don't charge interest, they can just remove it off this list. And I'll show you what that looks like in the admin login in a minute or two. Based on what the user clicks on, we can then drill down to that particular document. So if it's a summary document in AR, we'll show them a summary, etc. If it's a detailed document coming out of order entry, we'll go and retrieve that, show it to them. So they get kind of a web copy. They can go ahead and print a copy for them or PDF it or whatever they want to do with this. So they can now extract a copy of this document for themselves. We did design the system, by the way, that it will run well regardless of the device that you're running it on. So this is going to look very acceptable even if you run it on a mobile phone. So of course we don't want to squish everything to an unreadable font here. So instead of one line per document, they'll drop in underneath each other. So you'll get kind of a mobile phone view. Our filters have now kind of, filtered down that way, so you can click them with your finger. The menu is now, a fold open menu. And all of these screens are going to work. So even if we look at account activity, that's going to work properly regardless of the device that you're on. Before we go to pay account, we do have what we call stored cards if the bank allows that, or if our integration to the bank allows that. We will vault cards with the bank and they give back what's called a token. So we can have a look at token. In North America, it's really cool because if you choose one of the integrated solutions, we actually store the credit card directly in Sage 300. So the user can have a look at the cards that they've stored. They can go ahead and add cards. So I'm on Dan Pena, which is customer number 1600. If we just go over here and have a look at Dan Pen, let me just close all of this down. I'll show you what Dan Pen looks like. Credit card. So here is that credit card, Visa card 411 issued to Dan Pen Industries. That's the card which we're seeing over here that the customer stored. While I have Dan Pen open on the other side, I just want to show you one more feature which happens at login potentially. So I'm just going to log Dan Pen out here. When the customer logs in, we have the ability to go read back to his account in accounts receivable. And if he has any comments here, we can show those comments for him as he logs in. And we've narrowed that down or limited that down to a comment type web. So if we go ahead and change this comment here to just simply web, and the comment here is, hello Dan Pen, your application for extended terms have been approved, blah, blah, blah. So anything you want to let Dan know, or happy birthday Dan, or pay me or I'll come and beat you up. Whatever you want to communicate directly to Dan Pen, you can do so from within the AR account in accounts receivable. So if we just go ahead and save that, and then let Dan Pen log in over here again. When the system logs in, it's going to read that message and pop it up onto the screen for Dan. So Dan gets immediate notification. If Dan clicks the OK button, We'll then go back here and we'll change that to web acknowledge. So let me just navigate away and back to this guy. And the user can now see that Dan has acknowledged that message on the web. So we've turned the comment from web to web acknowledge, so we know Dan has seen this. And of course, if you go look at the audit date and timestamp of the record in SQL, you'll be able to see even when Dan did that, because we're going to update that. Our integration into Sage, whenever we're speaking directly to Sage, we do through Sage views. So we can't corrupt the data, or at least we avoid where we are incorrectly writing back into Sage. And we maintain compatibility, so we are not prone to break when the user upgrades his Sage 300. By and large, we'll keep on working because we're calling the Sage view. So the only way, which the application is going to break or not survive an upgrade is going to be if there's a change in the view. And in the past 20 years, Sage has not removed anything from a view. They've added functionality, but they've not removed any functionality. So we have not we've not seen a failure of the system where there's been an upgrade in Sage 300 in the background. Okay, back here then. So the user can now go ahead and pay their account. I'm just going to whiz through this very quickly. So let's pay these 3 invoices over here. You may optionally allow the user to override the amount if you want to, or you can turn that off. Go ahead and make the payment. Because there is now a stored card, the customer can just simply go ahead and pay. We have, again, those components of the surcharge on here, the ability to use different cards, etc. So go ahead and make that payment. And again, now everything's going to fire off. So here is the payment. The customer can go and print himself a copy of it or PDF a copy of it. Immediately, this notifications come through on my Microsoft Teams at the bottom here. Those are the payments being made. I've gotten all the emails, etc. And if we go back to our Sage here, we will see that there is now a new entry in this batch. Why is this not wanting? Oh, this over here. Let's go and call that up. The second entry has now been made into my batch. So the integration is happening real time. Moving on. If the user turns on prepayments, we'll be able to take prepayments. The first one is just an unallocated cash transaction. So it's just going to leave an unallocated transaction. Payments on orders are going to literally prepay that order directly in order entry and create the entry in accounts receivable. So if I would prepay order number 75 and then go look at order number 75, I'll be able to see that prepay on the order. And then prepayment quote is an interesting character because you can't actually prepay a quote. But we do create a prepay entry in accounts receivable so that when you turn the quote into an order, you can simply fill in the order number. Then it's going to automatically match with that order when you post that order through into the system. Right. View orders, probably more general relevance here. We've put a lot of functionality on this page. You can view the orders in order number order, or you can view them by items. So if you view by items, this would be a list of back order items of this customer in the system. If you view them by orders, there's a whole heap of functionality kind of embedded in this page. Again, you can choose, what types you want to see, open only, etc. The user can do a quick drill down on this. So, if they look at an order, they can just click on the order and have a quick drill down on it. Or they can literally go and have a look at the printed order, again, print themselves a copy of that order, etc. So their ability to control what's going on here is huge. When an order has shipped, the user can click down and have a look at what the invoice or invoices, plural, are. Here, if there's a tracking number in that order or that shipment, we'll show the tracking number down to detail level, so that if these things were shipped via different tracking numbers, the user will be able to see and view the tracking of a particular line on that document. So the drill down from here goes like in every direction, whatever happens with the document. The status could be either the status just gleaned from looking at the document, so we can just look at that document and order entry, and we know, of course, it's on hold, or it's, this is just a document not on hold waiting for shipment. If the user wants to refine these statuses, we will allow them to enter it into an optional field, and then they could have things like order received, order under review, order sent to manufacturer, is shipment expected in 2 weeks, or whatever they want to put into that optional field is going to show over here as the status of that particular document. We've also decided to use quotes to a more full extent, where we can do something like an RFQ. So when the user posts a order on the system, we will allow the merchant to say whether they can post that order as a quote or not. If it's a quote, of course, it's the customer saying, please give me a quote on something. So it becomes an RFQ, and we will then allow you to approve that quote internally. So if we look at the quotes here, just narrow down to quotes, you'll see that there are 2 quotes here. So there's one quote at the top here, and the user has turned this quote, or this quote has been turned into an order already. So order created from this quote, and we can go and have a look at it was order number 77 that was created off that quote. And then here is a quote, and it says waiting approval. And what we've done there is we've looking at an optional field. Unfortunately, the on hold flag is not available in quotes in Sage 300, so we couldn't use that. So we could use an optional field where this quote can be approved. So this is quote number 11. Let's go back and have a look quickly here at what we can see of quote number 11. I love Sage running this way. It is so fast. Okay, so here's quote number 11, issued to Dan Penn. It's got 2 lines on it. Let's go back. Quote number 11, Dan Penn, got 2 lines on it. And there's an optional field on here called quote approved or quote released, and set to no. So let's go set that to yes and just hit post button here. Flip back here. I'm just going to renew my screen. Okay, and if we now look at quotes, quote 11 has now been approved, and it now says approved on here, and the user now has the ability to come and call this up and then turn this quote directly into an active order if they want to do that. So actually, let's go ahead and do that. So there are 2 lines on that quote. Let's go ahead and confirm that. And so it's going to generate order number 79 for us. So if we flip back over here, we can go back a little bit. I see Alex has joined us. Pete, will you let him in? Hi, Alex. So we'll take a break in just a second and give you a catch up here. Order number 79 was now created without 2 lines on, and so this was generated from that quote real time. So the user now has the ability here to go and turn this quote into an order. Of course, again, at this point, they can go ahead and print themselves a copy, etc., whatever they want to do with that. Okay, Alex, welcome. We've kind of almost through the portal, but if there are any questions as we go through, please go ahead and stop us and ask away. I'll be happy to circle back for you.
Yes, sorry I'm late. Out at
no problem. We're also getting a fair amount of feedback from your mic. If you don't mind just putting yourself on mute, thanks. Okay. So that's view orders. That's kind of where heavy functionality comes in here. There's a lot more embedded in these pages than what seems evident, and so there's a lot of functionality that can happen even up to this point. in the system. And if again, if we now go back and have a look at our quotes, we've now turned both of these over into order created. Remember, our quote 11 generated order number 79, so we can open this up, generated in order 79, and the user can now click order 79, have a look at it, and so on. Order 79 appears at the top there, so there's the 2 lines on order 79. Our quote 11 is down here. Those were the 2 lines that were originally on quote number 11. So if the user decides to use that, they can go ahead and do. Of course, if they don't, no problem, they don't have to use it. Let's have a look at order processing here on the portal, and again, you can see that literally everything is happening internally. We're not posting to and fro. And actually kind of demonstrate that quite neat. If we just break that away, I'll slide that guy over. Call this, actually, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to call up my system task manager, and just going to highlight there's the Webtelligence line. So as I click through now, I'm just going to slide through and click through on the process. You'll see the service fire up just briefly. Let's just move this out of the line. So when I look at, for example, view transactions, you'll see that fire up as we're requesting the data. So 3, 2, 1, click. And you can see that just briefly. It's a little slow in reacting here, but you can see that firing up as I looked and asked the system for documents. If I go account activity, it's going to do the same thing, 3, 2, 1, click. There's the display, and you can see that just ever so slightly firing up as it's rendering the data back to me. So there's no concept of synchronizing data up and down. There's no procedure that have to be followed for the user to use this. Once the portal is set up, it really set and forget. There's nothing you have to do to it. It'll be in the background. It's just going to run. And literally all you need to do is make sure that that service continues running. If the service would fail for some reason or another, you will get notified. So there'll be an email going out, notifications going out to Teams or Slack or whatever you're using, and the system is going to notify you that there is a problem. We cannot communicate. Please go and check that service is running accurately. Okay. Finally, on the portal side of it, let's just go have a look at order entry. Again, it's going to run well regardless of the device that you're running on. So this will run well on a mobile phone. It really is going to not make much of a difference. Because we're reading real time out of the system, we're going to read the ship to addresses from the customer, or they can go ahead and enter a new one. The PO number here, so let's just go, we'll issue a PO for Michael. Let's get the expected ship date here. We want this shipped on the 31st, and then say ship via code. We do understand that very often this is an internally facing field, so the merchant has the option whether they want to display this field or not. If you do open it to the outside, you could have, different shipping options, overnight express, or, send a runner with it, it'll arrive here in a month or whatever the case might be. And then over here is please ship to Alex ASAP. I was going to leave that capitalized in there just for fun. And then because we want to make this efficient entry, the user can kind of slide that top out of the way. There's 3 levels of detail we can show when we're processing at the bottom. So let's just go and find a calculator. And this data is being read real time. Again, we don't have any data. So when the customer fills something in here, we will search the SKU number. So if they would put, for example, 900 in there, we will go find that same calculator. We'll search the SKU number, the description, for additional item information lines in inventory control. And if the customer is using customer item numbers, we're going to search that database as well. It will come up with the item that they want to purchase. And level 1, which is just really no details, we're just going to make this rapid entry. We do have the concept of a salesperson logging in. So you can allow price overrides, either just a salesperson or anybody. So we do have this deployed, for example, for non-profits where they make donations. So the quote unquote item number would be, a non-stock item, which would be donations to different areas of an organization. And then they can override the price. We do also allow miscellaneous charges, so you could also deal with it that way. So you could have miscellaneous charges going through the system. So you can allow price overrides if you choose to do so. Second level of details, we'll show the 4 additional item information lines. So let's go search for our calculator again. And we will then show the 4 additional item information lines. Quantity, let's make this quantity number 2 so we can track this order later on. And the user can then enter it that way. Level 3s, we can actually show images. So let's go and look at a product that does have an image. And the system is then going to display those images. These images can be stored anywhere where we can hold of them. So you can put them up on, wherever we can get at them, or you can upload them to the portal if you want to, and we'll store them for you. Order 3 of those. Go ahead and add this to the system. So we've now ordered 3 calculators, quantity 1, 2, 3. Whether you place a quote or an order is going to depend what you've allowed the customer to do. If you say order, it's going to just create an order directly. If you say quote, it's going to create a quote. Let's go ahead and place an order for this. Remember, the last one was 79, I think. So it's now generated order number 80. The user can, at this point, go and print one. There's going to be all sorts of emails being sent out, of course. So the customer is going to get a copy. So here is a copy to me. So I am the customer telling me what I've ordered. A copy of the document is going to be sent to the merchant, so to Sample Company Inc. in this case. And of course, as you would have expected, we will have posted this in Slack. So here is customer Sam Ltd has created an order on the portal, so notification is going to happen kind of in all directions. And then, of course, back at the ranch here, order number 80 has been created with my 1, 2, 3 calculators in stock. We do, PO number, Michael, there's an option if you want to place it on hold or not. We do note this in the reference. It's created on the portal by and then the user. And we have marked it as created by electronic commerce. So if you want to see all the orders that came in via the portal, all you need to do is go up here and say order source equals, make this electronic commerce. And you're going to see all the orders that came in via electronic commerce. If you refine the search a little bit to include electronic commerce on hold, you'll then see all the documents which require your attention. Of course, once you approve this document, just take it off hold, go ahead and post it, and it's not, it's now cleared for shipping through the system. And I think that kind of wraps up just the portal, which will be a good intro. This is going to make the Webtelligence side of it a lot easier and quicker. So there's a lot of the functionality which is embedded into the system. 99% of all full e-commerce systems we deploy has some of this functionality, perhaps not all of it, but at least some of this functionality is there. So when a B2B customer would log into the web store and they want to, for example, look at their account, we're using exactly the same portal that we're using here. When they drill down to their account, they're going to have a look at their account real time in the system. And so that is probably a good run-up. I will spend maybe a minute and just show you what the vendor can control here if they want to. So if I log in as the admin of this particular portal, and again, this portal is pointing at a Sage running on Azure over here, but I just need to to point out that that's not the intent. It's not for cloud only. It's a local deploy by and large. So let's log in. First thing the merchant's going to see is just a little bit of a dashboard. So how many receipts were processed through the system? What are the number of logins? Are there any unprocessed receipts? They can have a look at the users. So here they can maintain, activate, deactivate users if they choose to do that. We have a thing called a broadcast message. Pardon me. A broadcast message, unlike that message, which was a one-on-one via the comment field in accounts receivable, this is going to be broadcast to everybody. So this could be, Merry Christmas. It could be an important COVID notification, whatever you want everybody to see. And then likewise, as the user acknowledges this message, we're going to check it off so they don't show again until you hit reset the broadcast. And when you reset the broadcast, the user is going to see that again. Pardon me. Receipts created a very comprehensive list of payments going through the portal, because that would be more often when a user will call you and say, I made a payment and I can't see it. So over here, an error, so we know that this was declined by the system, actually caused a bit of a ruckus there. Incomplete, meaning the customer told us he's going away to make the payment, but it never completed on our side. And then, of course, today, we made 2 payments. So there's, the payment on invoice number 61 that we made, and there's that list of payments that we made over there. So a very comprehensive search functionality. So a customer says, I paid you, an amount, and it was around $400, or between 450 and 500 or rand. We're going to be able to pick that up and show it to the customer. Portal settings. Here is where the user controls what we need to look at when we register a customer. Do you want us to look at that allow on web flag, yes or no? That's per customer. Do we want to allow self-registration? What is the security question we want to ask them that will validate against the AR account? Here is a very easy way to change the logo. So, we can say, okay, we want to be a say 300 Cloud, and we'll change the logo immediately. So this allows the user to change the logo. Here is that welcome message that's displayed on the front page, so really easy to control. Let's go features and functions. We said we can turn on and off anything. So if the customer does not want to use, for example, prepayments, they can just turn that function off. It's not going to appear. What type of prepayments, if they have that on, do you want to allow? Where do you want to store your credit card IDs and so on? Which transaction types do you want to show? And then where do you want, what's the URL where you're going to host this portal? So we host it, but of course you can point an A record of the DNS at this. So you could create a subdomain. So if you're saminc.com or saminc.co.za, you can create a subdomain called customer.saminc.co.za, and when the customer navigates there, they're going to end up on your portal. So the URL does not have to show as as our URL can show as the customer's URL. Payment processing, just where we set up the payment processor. We spoke about, the distribution code for surcharges and fees, a message that you want to show, when the user looks at that, any maximum amount of payment that you want to allow by credit card, anything over that cannot be paid by credit card. Do you want them to allow override of the amount and so on? Notifications is where we control who gets what emails for the different areas. So there's technical our contact and so on. Sorry, I'm rushing a little bit. I'll take a breather in a minute and you can fire questions at me. Order entry control. So what is your default locations? What prices do we want to use? We honor every single price model and permutation within Sage 300. So if there's a prices, we'll look at that. Quantity, volume, discounts, contracts, and so on. So the price is going to be calculated here is going to be the price that you'll see calculated in Sage. Do you want to allow price overrides? Yes, no, and so on. Where do you want to show details, etc.? So this is the merchant control of what's happening with their portal. And so, by and large, once it's set up, the merchant really never has to come here. So if the only function they're running is is the portal, then it is truly set it up, forget about it. It's going to do its job. There's nothing you have to do daily. There's no procedure, etc. So while I take a quick breather and a sip of coffee, any questions for me at this point? Okay.
Yeah, Etienne. Sorry, it takes
Yes.
me a while to unmute. I just wanted to ask one or two questions. I see the on one or two of the screens you're referring to the Sage Exchange product. In South Africa, it doesn't. We never install it because
No.
it doesn't work here.
Yeah,
Do you
no,
have
no,
to
of
have-
course not. No, not at all. So let's just go back and have a look. Good question, Michael. So in the payment setup, it'll be, you know, whatever merchant you are going to use. And over here, we've got, it's only showing that because that is what we selected over here. If we change this customer to any of the other ones, and these are all North American payment guys, it's going to show that. So no, it is simply doing that because that's the payment gateway that we're connected to.
Okay, great. So in other words, if we had a customer in South Africa, we would need to have the payment gateway set up within the portal.
Yeah. So we do that integration, and then it will be whatever fields we need, because they do differ. If we look at these are all Paya, let's have a look at it. Here's American Payment Systems, now known as Repay. And you'll see even the fields slightly different. In Paya, it's got a merchant key. In API, it's got an API key, and so on. Where if FortisPay is even more complicated, you'll see FortisPay has a whole bunch of different fields. So depending on which the merchant is that's active, we are going to refer to them. So let's swap the USD account. Let's deactivate USD here, and let's go to FortisPay. So we'll make FortisPay active here, and I'll just really quickly show you that. Let's go and log out here now. Let's go to pay invoice. I'll just do a quick one. I just need to go delete this document so I can go ahead and pay it again. Otherwise, it may be that one.
Right.
62. Let me just try. Nope. 60. Oh, that's let's go invoice. Sorry. I think number 62 is still. There you go. Okay, so we're now attached to Fortis, not to Paya anymore. I hope this is set up properly. So here you'll see an entirely different screen. So Fortis allows you to modify the screen, so it'll be, your logo up here, etc., but a whole different payment gateway here. So yeah, it really is going to depend on what you're attached to and what the methodology, the integration with that payment processor is. So your bank or your payment processor is going to determine what this looks like and how we refer to it in the system.
Okay, great. Good. And then
Okay.
just the other question I had was just the connector you showed us earlier. Is that normally on the same server as your SQL server?
It's normally on the Sage application server.
On the application server.
Yeah. It can be anywhere where we can get at your Sage and SQL. So any machine anywhere, but it makes a lot of sense to be on an application server, because then you avoid somebody rebooting machine or doing something silly which is going to make this stop working. So you want it wherever it's going to run unattended, and do its job. The communication on the portal itself between this Connect service and the actual portal is IP to IP encrypted direct communication. So when you create this connection, you're literally going to give it an IP address that's going to run, and so we're going to do that communication. Let me just find it here. Where's my IP? Is that back on the front page? Blah, 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 blah. Come on, where am I running? I've lost myself in my own program here, but it will be an IP to IP connect. So it's very secure. You don't have to open your firewall. There's no IIS necessary. You don't have to install internet services for it to operate. So it's extremely simple. It's protected. So you open a port, and it will, quote unquote, sit inside of that port. So as long as it's running, it's not going to allow any other communication coming through that port. In this case, it's 8221 has been set up as the appropriate port for it to operate through. It's going to be simple, and so it's secure. So it's not that you need to hide it behind a firewall again. It typically will be just fine. We went through a huge amount of penetration testing, security testing, in order to be listed as a endorsed solution for Sage. And so it had gone through rounds and rounds of security testing. And even now with the new Apache vulnerability, we got an email from Sage asking us to validate and confirm that, that we're not subject to that vulnerability. So I'm saying that to say security-wise, it is very secure. There'd be no concern to run it on an application server, for example.
Good. That's all I was asking about, or needed to ask about for now. At the end, will we talk pricing and
absolutely. I'll hand it back to Pete, and he can nail it for you. I know Pete's going to say the same thing, but I can probably preempt that here. We understand that if we do a simple currency conversion, it just simply doesn't work. I mean, if we start charging US dollar prices in South Africa, we're going to price the product out of the market. And we understand that. So I just want to say, whatever we kind of show you in terms of pricing in North America pricing, we know that there is a currency adjustment, if you will, for pricing into other parts of the world. We are aware of that. We know that Sage, I think when we spoke to them, the pricing variations around 30%. So you're getting your Sage about 30% cheaper than what an American customer would pay for it, just because that's the reality of the currency. So we are aware of that, and we are really willing to speak about that and make whatever adjustments necessary to make the product palatable to your market.
Right.
Okay. Thanks. I'm going to really whiz through e-commerce. So the difference between e-commerce and the portal is a sub portion of e-commerce, but a lot of the functionality we spoke about also holds true in a full e-commerce environment. The difference being that on a full e-commerce environment, there is data being sent up to the web and data being transferred down into Sage. And we do that through our product called Dataport. So Dataport is likewise locally installed, and Dataport is going to be that replication synchronization module, which is going to make sure that any data going up to the web is necessary for the web to operate, even if the Sage 300 goes down below it. The portal, as you can imagine, will not operate if Sage is not operational, because we are reading everything real time. And that's okay when you're dealing with something like show me my account, but it's not okay if I cannot take an order, online while I'm busy doing a backup of my Sage, or whatever the case might be, busy upgrading, or my server has crashed, or whatever. I want to continue to take orders on the web. And then, if necessary, kind of queue those orders up when your Sage comes back live. We can download them in a bunch. We do still utilize the functionality, for example, where a customer places an order, we can turn on the functionality to write that order in real time. So you don't have to wait for any sort of synchronization method. There's nothing, you have to do to go fetch the orders that's being placed. But they will also queue up. So if for some reason Connect cannot post that order real time, we'll queue them up and Dataport will bring them in whenever your Sage becomes available down the line again. So what we do, moving, looking forward from this point, because I know that's, one of the things Ian mentioned is the hassle in getting an e-commerce system deployed. We are in discussion with Sage, and they will be taking on Webtelligence as an endorsed product. They don't at the moment, but they will be taken on. When they do, we are going to create, or we are in the process of creating small, medium, large type applications where you will order a small Webtelligence to have X functionality, and then, or medium, X, and those won't be the words, of course. We'll name them impressively, like enterprise, small business, and whatever. But essentially, going to have 3 models where functionality is going to be predetermined, and then a 4th one, which is anything else. So if you want to go to a environment where none of the features that are there is going to be good, then we can actually go ahead and deploy a very customizable option for you. What we want to do is start rapid deploying these things a lot faster than what even we are doing right now. And even what we are doing is because we're literally building every model or every Webtelligence as the customer requires it. I want to continue to do that because we have massive clients running on it, because we can do what most other people cannot do. For example, because Connect reads data real time, and Connect can read any data in Sage 300 and any SQL data, we can deploy functionality up onto the web without necessarily our web servers having the database structure to carry that data, right? So, for example, if you want to deploy a website and you want to extract some conversation interaction between you and the client, which is stored in CRM, and you want that to happen now on your Webtelligence, on your e-commerce system, we can do that without necessarily having to create the data structures for that conversation happening in CRM, because we can read and write directly to CRM. Right, so we have that functionality to go beyond the limitations of, well, now we need to create a data structure on your e-commerce system so that we can have this conversation and then synchronize it back into your CRM. We don't have that limitation. So we can now start deploying things which are just like nobody else can do this, and because we have this functionality sitting behind the portal which allows us to do that communication, we can deploy that. When we, so that is a preamble to, right now it probably takes about 3 months to deploy an e-commerce system. We're hoping to drastically reduce that so we can swing them out a lot faster. Step number 1 in deploying a Webtelligence system is we need to go ahead and design what that looks like. The user may choose to select their own graphic designer, that's fine, or they can come to us and we can do it for them. We typically would charge about a quarter to a third of what an external company would do. And the reason for that is we avoid a lot of problems where, an external designer would design an e-commerce system, and under pricing, they would, put 10 discount levels in. Well, Sage can only handle 5. So, what do we then do with that? So if we design it, our graphic design is going to design a system which is going to interact with Sage 300 real time with no problems and no, additional optional fields and stuff. By the way, we can draw optional fields out of the system. And so when we do a design, We use a product called InVision, and then from there we go to Adobe XD, so we will pan out on that design. And the user has interaction with us while we go through this design. So I can show you, for example, let's have a look at a few very simple ones. So here's Beeline. Beeline is a company who sells tires, and the entire e-commerce system is inward-facing. There's no external-facing portion of this e-commerce system. They use it internally for their salespeople only. So it's got a very simple kind of login screen. It's got, kind of almost portal-like icons here for them to do their jobs and so on. The order entry screen is quite comprehensive, as you can see, but it is an entirely inward-facing system. There's nothing of this facing externally. It's a little bit more colorful than what we normally see, but you'll also see that there are no product images on the system. It is internally facing. Let's drop back a little bit. Let's show you one more colorful. So here is a company called Swagman Racks. They build all these kind of fancy racks that you put on the back of your car to carry bicycles, etc. And their system is designed to be more attractive, if you will. So a lot of the outdoor life here, that's the customer that they're going to attract. Then you've got kind of bike racks, water sport accessories. So these would be the categories on their website, which you can also access through shop at the top there. Some highlighted products, new models. They've got a thing called ambassadors. Really, those are, guys writing up stories of their products. They've got Our Story, they've got news feeds. So these would be a blog attached to the website, and so on. So a lot more colorful functionality here, because that's the customer they're going over. And the idea here is that your website must be a reflection of your company. So it needs to address who your customer is, who's looking at this, and what is your product. And so very clearly, if you've got Caterpillar heavy equipment website, it's not going to look anything like this website, and it's going to look nothing like Victoria's Secret website, right? So your design is going to control the flavor, the look and feel, the emotional reaction with your client that you want on that website. And so design is kind of important, and very often kind of neglected. Let me show you another one, and then I'll go to that website. So take it from design. So here's one called Vicenza. Vicenza sells a very high-end cabinetry equipment, so doorknobs, door handles, rails, etc. And so their design was panned out here. And as I say, as we go through this design, the customer has interaction with us. So the customer will see what we're doing. They'll be able to comment on it. There's feedback going to and fro, etc. And again, in moving forward, we want to create a model where really here is a design, pick it, we'll put your colors and your things on it to make it cheap and fast. But we don't ever want to let go of our ability to design a website to look exactly the way you want it to look. So every page is being designed here, the front page. So on the front page, there'll be kind of a scrolling, you can see there will be a scrolling image. We've got, our product highlights here. There'll be a shop by category, and so this shop by category is also at the top here, so we can shop by product families. Product families are just different designs. So Archimedes is a particular design or product range, or they can shop by a product category, which is now I'm looking for door handles or bath accessories, etc. So however your client's going to be looking for their product, we want to be able to navigate to that product as quickly as we possibly can. Okay, and so that's here. Subscribe to our newsletter, our Pinterest page, our Facebook page, etc. Let's go have a look at Vicenza real time, and just kind of compare that to what the design was originally. So Vicenza Designs, here we go. This is the live page, vicenzadesign.com. Here is the scrolling products. You can see them scrolling at the top here. They did eventually allocate more room than what was on the design. And again, literally everything we do is what we call adaptive design. So this is going to run well regardless of the screen size. So if I'm on my phone, this is what the website's going to look like. If I'm on a tablet, it's probably going to look more like that. And of course, if I'm looking at this on a full screen, it's going to look like that. So the design is going to work regardless of the piece of equipment that you're dealing with it on. They've got their product families at the top, product categories at the top. They've got the highlighted products here. This quick ship is an optional field. So even as we're showing them the screen, we can read and store optional fields on the system. So we can use optional fields for a whole host of things. Quick ship for them is just a yes, no optional field. It means that they actually do have this in stock. The rest of the stuff they will manufacture on order. So they have this particular product in this material in stock right now. You can go ahead and purchase it. Shop by categories. Remember, we had this. Is now a little bit more interactive, so the page is going to react as they look through it. Our Pinterest account, subscribe to our newsletter, etc., etc. So you can see this page having evolved here. If we then go look at, say, Archimedes, here are the Archimedes products. We've got a they've got a finder on here, so you can look for a product, but they also have a filter. And the difference between the two is that a finder and a filter is going to narrow down within a selected product range already, whatever that range might be. So yeah, we're looking at a design. And so I want to narrow down within the design. I just want to see, let's say towel bars and paper holders, and go ahead and filter that down. And then that's all I now see in the system. If I drill into a particular product, this product is now back-ended by a whole bunch because you get different lengths and different material manufacturing. So this single page could potentially represent a number of items in inventory control in the background. That's what we call product grouping. It's when, you want one page, and that would be T-shirts. You've got red, yellow, green, small, medium, large, round neck, V-neck. You just want one page for that. You can do that. You want a page for everyone? Go ahead. You can have a page for everyone as well. And so over here, select the size and then select the manufacturing. And I'm going to show you the image of that particular size of manufacturing that you've got here. You've got a whole heap of information. Download a catalog, download instructions, specifications that they want to maintain, care and maintenance that they want to maintain. Where we can, we will draw this directly out of Sage 300. So if you had, only kind of length with projection, we could very easily put that into an optional field. If it becomes more than that, then this data is maintained in Dataport. So Dataport has the ability to do what we call web fields. So that's information that does not exist inside Sage 300. But it does exist on the web. We want to make it easy for you to manage to maintain that data. We'll put this data in Dataport for you, and you can take care of it over there. Likewise with images, you can load images from Dataport and then synchronize them up to the web. Add this to cart. From this point, it kind of flows like just about anything else going to flow. It's going to be your cart. You can edit the cart. Have a very strong promotion thing. A promotion could either be, buy 3, get the 4th one free, or we'll give you free shipping over $200. But it could also be a code that you could potentially enter. So enter a code and we'll give you a free baseball cap, or enter a code and we'll give you $50 off, or whatever the case might be. So, and then it follows the same kind of checkout. This is a B2C, so this is geared for consumers, and for that reason we can see pricing and everything else as we navigate through that. If you do a very straight B2B, the system can look entirely different. So let me just flip over and show you a very basic B2B. This is Tip Top Parts. They sell, vacuum cleaners and parts and equipment, etc. They've got a Canadian and US website. If we drill into the Canadian one, they do keep it very simple by design. So they said that a lot of their clients are going to be accessing this from the road via cell phone. So they're on their road to a customer, they need a spare part, they want to swing by and pick it up. And so this is going to work. You'll see, for example, these three icons are going to drop in underneath each other on the cell phone view, so they can still maintain and deal with the system using a cell phone. So they stayed away from heavy graphics. They don't want to eat up your data plan, etc. So this is a B2B, very clearly designed. You need to log in to get any sort of pricing information. But just to kind of give you, let's go have a look at extractors, the shampoos. That was their product category list, by the way. I think they've got 18,000 products running here. So here you can see they've got, this machine here. There's no pricing, no buying options. They've got a French translation because they deal mostly they deal across Canada, and we have French as second language. They used an optional field to put that in, so very simple. On the product, got an optional field, put the French in there. We show the French in here. If we drill down into this product, still no buying option, no pricing, huge amount of information, related products. These are all the spare parts, documentation. You've got brochure model part list, for example, exploding part list in a PDF that they can show the customer. They've got how-to videos. Customers also bought these products and so on. Let me log in and just show you how the page transforms once I log in and it knows who I am. Am I on caps here or not now? My caps lock is still on. It's not going to log me in. Nah, yeah, it was still on. Let's go. Caps off. Okay. Oh. Hey. Okay. So now I've logged in as a customer. You can see the portal here again. I can track my order status. I can look at purchase history. I can look, for example, at reordered from old orders. So the user can click this. We will extract their invoices for them, show them what they've bought in the past, and allow them to buy it again. Remember, again, their system is a little slow here, but any data that exists in Sage we can get a hold of, right? So you could have a page which just lists the top 6 items you've bought in the last 6 months, because that data is available in Sage. So what we do here when they want to reorder is we'll call up their old invoices, show them those invoices and allow them to repurchase. Some of these you'll see are not checked on. So as we extracted this one, they bought this with invoice number, that invoice, the customer bought that product, but that product's no longer available, so they just don't show it here, being able to purchase. And the customer can now just go ahead and click what they want to buy, or just, repeat the whole order, and we're going to add that whole order into the shopping cart for them. They can look at purchase history, so we'll, go look at products that they bought and show them when they bought that product, when last they bought them. We can look at serial numbers. Again, get kind of wrap your head around the fact that if that data exists in Sage 300, we can, get that data, we can display that data to the customer, because we can reach Sage 300 direct. Right now, they're very slow. I'm kind of guessing based on the time of the day that they're all busy logging in and clearing out their backlog of orders, etc., that needs to be done on their site. So, let's just make them react here. Okay, so let's go back to my account. Catalogs, dealer favorites. So we do have wish lists. A wish list can either be kind of a wish list, put it in the wish list. When I order it, it goes off, or it can be cataloged. So a B2B user can create, what we'll call a catalog. So they can create a list of products that they need to order weekly and a different list of products they need to order monthly. And so just by going to that catalog, they can then get a list of their particular products and go add them. And this can look, whatever way that we want it to look. So the user interface, what this physically looks like on the screen, is going to be whatever we design it. Remember, Vicenza, entirely different look and feel to Tip Top Parts look and feel. Over here, we now also have, if we go back to my account, we also have something called a quick order. So again, that concept where a customer can just fill in an order. If this is a B2B customer, they can just fill in, a vacuum cleaner. A list will come up. They can select what they want, go ahead and process an order, kind of rapid fire here. So this is a quick order pad. It just allows a customer to go and order the order very quickly. If we go back and have a look at that same product we looked at earlier, you'll see that even on a category view now, we've got the pricing, and this is my price. I've logged in, so it's reading my price list. It's going to adjust this price based on who I am. Of course, if it's in a retail environment, you set up a retail price list, and that's going to be applicable to everybody that does not have an AR account. If you have an AR account, so we can do B2E, where you can do retail, but if somebody logs in, we can look at their pricing model. We can also control the products that they look at. So for example, you can set up a price list, with 10 products, call that the retail price. So a guy can come in, not have an account, and buy any of those 10 products. But if you log in, your prices have 100 items on them. As a supplier, you can then order those 100 products. So we can control, not only your pricing, but which prices are available to you based on who you are. So now I've got that. I can add it to my cart right from here. I can add it to my favorites or my wish list directly from here. And even if we drill into this product now, remember last time we didn't have any pricing information. Now I do. So now we do that. We can show you in individual warehouses where the product is. If you wanted to show quantity, we can do that. Typically, people don't think that's a smart idea because now, the competition will know that I've got 10 on hand or not. So we will, and typically the availability is a graded thing. So it'll be, if I have if I have more than 10 available, show it as available. If I have between 5 and 10, show it as, call for availability. If I have less than 5, then say typically ships in 2 weeks. So, whatever you want that message to be. And the comparison could be an optional field, for example. So you can say my lead time on this product is long. So typically if I have less than 5, show out of stock or whatever the case might be. And so we have the ability to manipulate the messaging that we're going to give you even on availability and even across warehouses or locations or what you want to see. And I think with that, I'm going to take another breather here, being cognizant of time. We've kind of run this way over our 1 hour and just kind of pause. Any questions? Any way you want me to rabbit trail in for you?
I must say it looks very good. So everything's
Awesome.
your own design. So it's not anything that people would say, I want to use Shopify or anything like that. Everything we're looking at is what you design and everything that you host. Is that right?
That's correct. Now, going on to the Sage price list, we will offer options which will be more kind of plug and play. We're going to have 5 designs for you. You can choose one of them. There won't be an extra charge. So you and we'll apply your colors and your logo to that design. But we still want to have the option. If somebody comes to us and they say, we want to just design our own website, it needs to look, radically different. We'll still be able to do that for them.
That's good. So it's all real time. Did I understand that part correct? if the SQL and the site's up, then it's all happening in real time. It's not a case that it's going to synchronize every 3 minutes or something like that.
The customer portal is real time. The full e-commerce system is a mixture of the two. So
Right.
the full e-commerce system is real time. So when I go to my account, and that's why these guys are a little slow this morning, so when I look at my account activity here, we're extracting that real time. Having said that, though, there is a lot of data that is getting synchronized with a full e-commerce system because we want the e-commerce system to continue running even if your internal system is down. Which components we deploy is entirely up to us during the design phase. So, for example, if the customer wants accurate real-time inventory availability, then we'll read that real-time out of the system. But it does mean every time somebody calls up a page, we're firing a request through to your Sage 300, right? So we do have customers that says our internet connections cannot handle that, or our Sage machinery cannot handle that. We do consume a LAN pack, a license. So, whoever deploys the system is going to have an available Sage license for it. And so if their internal system is just too slow to extract that based on the volume of people they expect to be visiting the site, then we can synchronize the quantity, whenever, early in the morning, 3 times a day, every half an hour, whatever they want to do, and get that up onto the system. And again, that will depend on, how much data do we want to transfer. We try and be smart, so we'll look at the ordered date stamp when we synchronize items. So, if an item has not changed since the last time that you ran a sync, it's not going to try and sync it again. It's just unnecessary clutter and volume and traffic going through essentially a very limited pipeline up to your web store. So yeah, it's a mixture of the two. Our goal typically would be to keep the web store running even if your Sage is down, which we cannot do if everything is real time. But hey, if you want everything real time, we can do that too, right? So it depends how we deploy this. What is your demand for your web store? How much of it needs to keep running? How robust is your Sage 300 install? If your Sage 300 is robust, you have sufficient resources, the licenses are available for us to use. And we only use one, by the way, regardless of how many people are inquiring. But if you're expecting, we've rolled out websites where at the end of new ones, and the guy said, well, I expect 20 orders a day to come through, and then at the end of the month we realized that there were 3,000 orders placed through the system, and the guy literally had 500,000 web page hits. So now think that if we recall inventory availability on every page hit with 500,000 page hits, we're going to bring your Sage 300 to its knees, right? So it really is going to depend. Who are you? How robust your system? What do you expect of it to do? How critical is a particular piece of information? And based on that, we're going to sit down with you and say, this is what we think is going to work. Let's synchronize this data. Let's read that data real time. And we're going to deploy a website which is going to do what you want it to do.
So you can synchronize different processes. For example, let's say the customer could be synchronized once every 3 hours, and
right.
Continent's hand could be every, say, 5 hours, if that
correct.
was the requirement.
Correct. So we created. Unfortunately, I don't have access to a data port. Otherwise, I could show you. But we created what we call sync actions, and then you build what we call a sync profile based on sync actions. So you could say 8 o'clock in the morning, I want my quantities synced to the web. I want any orders during the night that wasn't posted to sync back into the system. And that's it for 8 a.m. And then at 6 o'clock tonight, any priceless changes need to go up. But we also have a button, right? So synchronization happens on a schedule and on multiple schedules. So you can have different things happening at different times of the day. But if you make if somebody screws up a price list and now you realize this item is being given away at 15 cents, on the web store, and you need to go fix that, you can go fix the prices, go in and push a button and say, hey, upload my prices right now, and the system is going to update the prices. So, the synchronization is going to happen on granular format when you want to, so you don't try and replicate your Sage system up to the web every half an hour. You can just simply say, hey, go look if there are any new orders placed in the last half an hour and bring them in. But we can also post orders real time, right? So it really is a more complex answer. In the end, we want it to work efficiently, right?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay. Any more questions, gentlemen? Before I can kind of hand back to Pete, and he can just touch on pricing for you. I do apologize. I've just looked down at the time now and realized that we've gone way over, and so please forgive me. When we get together, I owe you a beer.
We'll take you up on that.
Yeah, of course.
Cool, Etienne. Thanks.
Yeah, well, there.
So guys, I can
you know what? Over here is good. I mean, you guys have great beer, but man, we've got if you would put a can of beer, a different make, model, manufacturer, taste, flavor can of beer out on a rugby field, you'll fill that rugby field up. Because we've got things called microbreweries, so it won't be, atypical that you can buy a beer, in a shopping district in Vancouver that you probably cannot get, in the town next door. So it's a microbrewery. They brew, only for their kind of brew pub, kind of keg and bull kind of effort. And then, of course, every flavor of every beer imported from anywhere in the world. So, I mean, if you want to, go spend a month just tasting different beers, I think North America is the place to do it, especially Vancouver. For some reason, everybody just drinks an abnormal amount of beer up here.
I think that's a Canada-wide thing.
Yeah, it could very well be. Yeah. Hey, winters are harsh, eh? And by the way, it's snowing ever so slightly up here where I am now.
Wow.
So guys, let me share you some information about pricing, and I'm going to take over the screen share if you can bail out on yours, I think. Oops. Oh, that's my camera. That's not my screen share. Hang on. Where am I? Oh, there it is. Here we go. So easiest place to look for this, guys. Now, there's two different things here. Of course, there's the customer portal, and I think that's going to be a bit less of a price discrepancy thing than, say, a full-on web store. But if you just go to our website and you can navigate to the customer portal or whatever you want, either this way or this way. And I'm on the Sage 300 customer portal page here. And incidentally, the portal demo that Etienne was doing, you or your customers can have access to. We publish the credentials here. You just click that, you'll get logged in. You can go in and play away with it. We reset that data on a regular basis, so it's easy to do in Sage 300. But the pricing is listed here as well. And so it's pretty inexpensive. We're trying to make it accessible by as many people as possible, and really our target market for this is anybody running accounts receivable in Sage 300. And of course, if you're running order entry, even better, because there's more capabilities there. But really, this is what it is. You can start out with a basic customer portal with no payments or anything else, and that's how much it is in US dollars. Most people get it for the online payment capabilities, and this was just an add-on, so you just add that component, and that would include the click to pay and all the prepayments and all that stuff. And again, as Etienne said, we're payment processor agnostic. We've tackled a whole bunch of North American ones, and of course, we'd probably want to do the same for your market, who are the big players there, and we'd want to make sure we got them covered off. And then the other add-on, of course, is the quick order entry that you saw, and that's what the cost of that is. So that's the customer portal. It's a packaged product. This is what you get. As Etienne said, we do have the capability to add merchant-specific functionality, and that's one of those things we'd have to, of course, spec out and figure out exactly what was required so we could provide a quote to make that work happen. And it's usually, sometimes there's an upfront cost and sometimes there's an additional subscription, and incidentally, these are annual subscriptions, by the way. We do require a Sage 300 user license, and there's a one-time setup fee as well. That's just to get that instance set up in our data centers. And there's, brochures and customer stories and videos and stuff on here that you can get access to or steer your customers to, whatever makes sense. The Webtelligence side of things is a bit of a different animal, as you probably surmised from Etienne's explanation. The way it's set up right now, which is currently what we're dealing with until we end up in the Sage price list, which we're working with them on right now. But you're looking at an initial setup fee, and that typically covers all the design and everything else. That's probably going to be in the neighborhood of, and this give or take, it may $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, but it's going to be around a $10,000 setup. And then it's a monthly subscription after that. And that's what we call managed services. So it includes all of our data storage and the data transfer that's necessary. It includes backups. It includes us monitoring 24/7. So, and compatibility releases for the next release of Sage, plus tech support. It's all included in those managed services. And it's hard to come to a number with this, but it really depends upon what specific features and functionality they want. And again, as we move forward with Sage, it's going to be a small, medium, large kind of a scenario. But right now, it's a pick and choose a la carte kind of what capabilities you want. So very typically in a B2B that might have some B2C offerings with a customer portal, you're probably looking at subscriptions in the neighborhood of, call it $1,400 to, well, and it can go up there. It can be $2,400 a month too, again, depending upon the bells and whistles that you want to have attached to it. Now, this is an area where I think we need to be a lot more cognizant of your market and what those costs or what the market's going to accept there. So this is where we'd be open to talk to you and say what makes sense for your customers. I know there are some larger companies there that might take advantage of this, but we don't want to price ourselves out of the market. So let's have a conversation about this. Let's figure out what makes sense for your market. But North American terms, those are the kind of numbers we're talking about. Hope that was all clear.
Yeah, I think so, Peter. I think one thing I'm looking at is it doesn't matter how many users you have going into the portal. There's no transaction fee or anything like that.
No transaction fees, no per user cost. It's one user license or one LAN pack. And then we govern the traffic. We take care of all the transactions going to and fro in there. So only ever one LAN pack required.
Okay. Right.
We don't take any part of the processor's fees. Normally when at least in North America, when somebody sets somebody up with a payment processor, that's their margin to earn. And we don't want to be seen as cutting into partners' margins because of the payment processor they chose. So we stay out of that game intentionally.
Right. Something a little bit off the topic of the current two products.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another thing we're looking at is customer hosting, the full Sage 300 hosting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an offering that you have? Or
well,
should we use Azure? I see on one of the logos here, I see you've got something at work, which I recognize as a hosting company.
Well, Net at Work is, yeah.
Net at Work.
Yeah, they're a big Sage 300 partner here in North America, and they also have their own private cloud hosting service. And there's a few North American partners that offer that as well. North 49 is also certified on in North America. I don't think it's been released internationally yet, but the Sage Partner Cloud, which is deploying Sage 300 on Azure. And that's what Etienne was showing, that we had our portals hooked up to that offering. It's quite slick, actually. It's very nice. It does require an Azure subscription, which nailing down how much that cost is it's a bit of a challenge. It's like deciphering your cell phone bill sometimes. There's so many components involved to it, but we're getting a lot better at it. But when that gets rolled out internationally, that's a great offering. And that's kind of what we do. It's not, and we do it specifically for Sage 300 customers that we have, because we're also a Sage 300 partner here in Vancouver. So we offer that to our customers if they want it. But it is a really good way to get Sage 300 online and allow you to run it in a browser. It's very slick. And Etienne's a huge advocate of that. He he thinks it's the greatest thing since, as he says, peanut butter. So
All right.
yeah, we think it's probably bought Sage 300 another 10 years of life.
It is very slick. It runs in a browser like you won't believe, and it's fast. Being Azure, you're not going to out-provision it. I mean, there's nothing you can do that's going to, outperform what Azure does. It'll run from anywhere in the world. When you deploy it, you actually choose in which country you want to, the Azure server to be deployed. It's really, really cool. Sage in North America is offering huge incentives, license-wise, to move guys onto that platform. And so it's running 300 in a browser natively. It's just like really, really cool. So yeah, everything I showed there was just, and it doesn't have to be. You can, it's a local deploy. It's a on-prem install, so it doesn't have to be there. It's convenient for us to demo it there because I can demo it from wherever I am in the world. I've just log in, got access into it. I just thought I'll share with you guys my camera. You should be able to. It's just started snowing out here, so you can see what it looks like outside my window. It's gone out of focus. So let me just go and apply that and apply. There you go.
Oh, very pretty.
Just getting a little wet now, a little wet. So
how's that feel for you, Etienne, when you're trying to drive in the snow?
Yeah, it's fun, and I'm up on a little hill, and it's really kind of odd because it's just snowing and cleared up. So if I point the camera up, you can see it's actually kind of that's not clear up there, but it's blue sky in between. So that's kind of the prettiest pretty. It's when it's when it's been snowing for a while, and then the sun comes up and it's really white outside. So thought I'll share that with you guys.
Yeah, great, thanks. Very nice.
So guys, any more questions? Anything else that we can help you with?
No, I think that was good. I think we'd be interested once, depending what Sage does in our part of the world with Azure, I think we'd be interested in getting a bit more information at that stage on the hosting side.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. We think it's a good option. As far as the customer portal and Webtelligence side goes, now, do you see some application there for your customers?
Yeah, I think so. The portal looks very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the portal tends to be a fairly easy sell because it's so inexpensive, and it does give you, I wouldn't call it full e-commerce. It doesn't go that far, but from a B2B environment, somebody who's familiar with your product list and they just want to get an order in there quickly, it can work pretty well. And really the incentive for us to really enhance it came kind of at the start of the pandemic, and we started to get a lot of calls, people saying, I need to get online fast. Well, we could always build them a web store, but fast really didn't enter the equation because it was kind of a 3-month process. Whereas the portal, we can have that up and running for somebody in an hour. That's the beauty of it. It's such low overhead on the customer side of things. It's a piece of cake to get it going.
Yeah, the portal literally deploys in about half an hour. Because any of the customization, the logos, etc., that can be uploaded by the customer. We don't do that. So getting a customer portal deployed goes very, very quick. And because we don't have any data, there's none of that data location ownership issues. Your data is wherever your Sage is running. The portal doesn't have any data, so it really goes very quick. There's no synchronization. It's a very slick kind of deploy. I don't know do you guys use Sage 300 for your own internal system?
Yeah.
Maybe we should experiment at some point and let your customers have a look at their accounts online. Even if if we start really simple, they don't have any payment options, but they can just look. We're happy to do that for you. Let's see if we can deploy it that way and see what it looks like.
Yeah, it sounds great. I think we'll really start going again only in the new year, but it's great to spend a bit of off time now. thinking about what's available and how we can attract more business, and offer new tools to our existing customers. That also does
Absolutely.
help to bring in
Yeah.
some revenue. So, yeah. Thanks again, Etienne and Peter.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you very
welcome.
much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, gents.
Could I
Have a good evening there.
I
Sorry,
saw
Ava.
I saw this was being recorded. Possible to share that so I can pick up on the first part of it?
Yeah, as soon as we're done here, I think it'll tell me where it is, and I'll try to get a copy of that off to you as soon as we get it, if I have to convert it or what I've got to do, but we'll figure that out.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks, gents.
Thanks.
Have a
Thanks.
good
Enjoy
evening.
the day. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.